Hello, welcome to part 2 of installing a solar power system and a diesel heater to a cargo trailer conversion. Today's video is brought to you by Robert's Nephew's Front Lawn. So what we have here and what we've been waiting for are these final solar power components, which we will go through later in the video. I did bring them to an electrician to have 2-gauge wire installed. The investment was worth it to me to make sure it was done properly and with a heavy enough gauge for safety purposes. So today we will be mounting this board, and having the components on the board just simplifies everything and makes it more portable. Very easy to bring it into the electrician to have this part done, so I didn't have to bring the whole trailer to the electrician. We're also going to be mounting the battery box and hooking everything together to start generating solar power and charging the battery that I got, and also hooking up the diesel heater so that that has power as well. Now, if you're wondering how much it costs to bring the components in to have them wired by an electrician, it was a total of $103.70, and that also included me buying the battery box. The labor itself was $36, the battery box was $12, and the rest were parts going into the gauges and the copper and things like that. So $103.70 with only $36 in labor and $12 for the battery box. So I would have had to buy the parts anyway. So I'd rather pay $36 to have a professional set it up. I did bring the board in and I had already mounted all of these things. So all the guy had to do was run the wire and connect it all. So I'd rather have that expertly done. And I'm happy about that. Now all I have to do is mount this board inside the cargo trailer and set everything together. So we'll do that here next. The board that I mounted all of the solar components on that we're going to mount on the wall was actually the second shelf for this kitchen cabinet. I just had it laying on the bottom and I wasn't using it, so it's already got a nice finish on it and everything. That's where I got that board from, if anyone's wondering. I do fancy myself to be Parvati. Now you might be wondering why we're not just trimming the excess cord, and it's because I don't want to. You might also be wondering why the board is kind of upside down, and partly it's because that's just how it got wired. It works just fine that way. All the wires come in up the top anyway. And with the way that this was mounted, which was by me, it's a little bit upside down, but it doesn't really matter. You might also be wondering why I don't have a battery reader, and it's because I ordered the wrong thing. So down the road, I will be getting a, what is it, battery monitor?
Battery monitor.
I will be getting a digital battery monitor. I tried to go cheap, so it ended up not being the right thing. Fortunately, this solar charge controller does have a light system, so it will tell me essentially what I need to know through some blinking lights and colored lights, but it's way easier to see an actual output, input, digital reading. So we'll get to that down the road. And if nothing else, it creates more content. Is it moving? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The slow blink on the solar charge controller means it is charging normally. If it started flashing fast, it means it's over voltage.
Danger! Run!
What do I do if it's over voltage?
Just means you can't, because we have all these protections.
Oh, okay.
So even if it were, but it would never do it because you're limited to 30 amps with this controller. But if it did, it would go to this 40 amp breaker. This breaker would trip and shut down everything else. That way you don't destroy everything.
So from the solar panels, just to help anyone at home maybe, from the solar panels we have them coming in to our solar charge controller, which is going, hey, I'm getting sunshine, cool, I gotta do something with the sunshine. So then there's these communication cords which could go directly to the battery if I so wanted. But instead we have them going, okay, we have all this energy, what are we going to do with it? We're going to go to a breaker, and the breaker goes, hey, if things go awry, I'll break things down and turn them off. And then from the breaker we go to this bus bar, and the bus bar says, hey, I'm going to distribute things appropriately to some other channels. So one of the channels that it's going to is a fuse bar. And the fuse bar is like an intermediary, kind of like, what's that thing if you're getting a divorce and you go, you know, and sometimes they have the person that helps between the two.
That's an intermediary.
Yeah, so it's kind of like these two, you know, you don't want them arguing, so you go to an intermediary, which is your fuse bar. And then before we have power distributed to the children, like the outlets and whatnot, we go through the social services system, which is the fuse block, or where we can have all these different social workers that go, all right, we have all these energy resources that have already been safety commissioned and gone through intermediaries from the parents, which is the solar panels and the solar charge controller, and then they feed down to the battery, and the battery is like the government, and they just hoard resources until they're ready to distribute. So the next thing that we have to do is set up wiring, which is going to distribute those resources to the little children, which is going to be my 12 amp volts and my diesel heater. So those are the two children I have right now, is two 12 volt outlets and a diesel heater. Those are my only kids, which is why I got a 200 watt solar panel system. I hope this really ass backwards, convoluted social worker intermediary analogy just landed so well for anyone, hopefully. But I do hope that helps, because I think that this could be otherwise quite confusing if it's just explained in like amps and volts and stuff. So,
which is what I was going to do.
Yep, that's what I had a feeling. Hey, if you want the big boy explanation, here's Robert.
Maybe. 200 watts power on the roof coming in here. This distributes 30 amps. It goes over to the 40 amp breaker. So if you go over 30 amps of power, which shouldn't happen anyway, this will break, stop all any things. There's another 250 amp protection fuse. You can get these anywhere from 100 amps to 250, and they're just another source of protection, mostly from the battery, so the battery doesn't overcharge the system going this way. And this is just going to get the end of everything, but it's fine because it's going to distribute 12 volts, or basically whatever size fuse you put in there, which the only fuse we have right now is a 15 amp fuse. So 30 amps to 15 amps, very simple.
I personally don't understand anything he really just said, which is why I go with the parents, social worker, intermediary, you know, security system. This would be like maybe the police before you hit child social services. I hope this helped. Now, typically, what one would probably do is take all the panels off the wall and feed all this wire behind the panels like the rest of the wiring of the cargo trailer. But I don't want to take all the panels off the wall, so instead we're gonna just disguise it. Okay, Robert, let's see if we have power. We do! So that means we wired it correctly. Yay! So as you can see, with things put back, you really can't see the wires on this wall. Most of it is hidden by the bed. Please excuse the mess. The only place things are really ugly is this wall. Maybe if I had this professionally done, or, you know, when the cargo trailer was being built, I could have wired all this behind the panels like the rest of the wiring is, but this was an after manufacturing add-on, if you will. So what I'm probably eventually going to do is come up with like a skirting solution I can just Velcro on and hang down to cover this. This wall was never particularly pretty anyway. This just kind of adds to, it's just a very industrial look. So I'd probably want to cover that eventually, but the priority was getting it all installed. We do still have to install these 12 volt and USB outlets. Again, this would look best if I went behind the wall paneling, but I don't want to take all this wall paneling off to install these. So I have an idea of a workaround that will look kind of like how these outlets are, but we have to find or create what I am thinking of. Oh, hi! I moved. So I hope you enjoyed watching the wiring of the solar power system and the diesel heater. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the final part of this solar power and diesel heater installation in a cargo trailer conversion series, where we see if the diesel heater even will turn on. We got an error code. And if it works. And I answer some of your questions from the first video of this series, as well as some that I'm sure you'll have, like why I used a 1-inch hole saw and some other things. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you again very soon. It's a giant crater. It's a giant lava crater.